Hey guys, so this is Dhruv's project for programming language. So today I'm going to be talking about programming language and how they are and how they're going to work. So there are many programming languages nowadays. So we're going to go in history as well and talk about general programming languages. So first off, let's start off. So, what's programming language? Programming language is a formal language which comprises a set of instructions that produce various kinds of output. Programming languages are used in computer programming to implement algorithms. So, basically, this is the generic term or the definition of programming language. You can learn more over here. Just pause the video and just go through it if you want to go through it. So, it's basically about how programming languages are these days. So these are talk about other things as well. Thousands of different programming have been created, and more are created every year. This is true because you can create your own programming language someday. Programming language is basically your language. It's language like Hindi or like English that we speak in. It's like a language to computer. How a computer would understand how a computer would do a program. So let's move on. Elements of coding. So what are two elements, main elements of coding? The first is syntax. Syntax is called as the form, and other is semantics. Semantics is the meaning. So we should learn about the meaning and the form of coding. That's how we're gonna code. So, syntax. What is a syntax? A programming language's surface form as is known as syntax. Most programming languages are purely textual. They use sequences of text, including words, numbers, and punctuations. Much like written natural languages, on other hand, there are some programming languages which are more graphical in nature, using visual relationships between symbols to specify a program. You may have seen this while coding. If you are a coder and if you're completely new to the coding world, this is like the brief explanation of what a syntax really is. So this is about more syntax and how really a syntax is. So it basically possible combination symbols that form syntax. Okay, so now we move on to semantics. Semantics, what is semantics? The term semantics refers to meaning of languages as opposed to their form syntax. This basically summarizes the meaning of what your syntax says. Syntax can be, like I said, descriptional in a form of video, in form of image or like symbols or etc. There are two types of semantics: static semantic and dynamic semantics. The static semantic defines a restriction on the surface structure of valid text that are hard or impossible to express in standard syntactic formalisms. For compiled languages, static semantics essentially include those semantic rules that can be checked at compile time. Examples include checking that every identifier is declared before it is used in languages that require such declaration, or that our labels on the arms of case statements are distinct. Now, was basically a static semantic definition. Now, let's move on to dynamic semantics. Once data has been specified, the machine must be instructed to perform operations on data. For example, the semantics may define the strategy by which expressions are evaluated for values, or the manner in which control structures conditionally execute statements. The dynamic semantics, also known as executional semantics, of the language defines how and when various constructs of language should be produced or program behavior. Now let's move on to history of programming, the how it programming started, and like you and I must wonder sometime that how it started, like how on computer we can give instructions, specific instructions to computers and make them have a brain of their own or do something that is quite exceptional. So let's start. Very early computers such as Colossus were programmed without the help of stored program by modifying their circuitry or setting banks of physical controls. Slightly later, the program could be written in machine language, where the programmer writes each instruction in numeric form. The hardware can execute directly. For example, this instruction to add value in two memory locations might consist of three numbers. An opcode that selects add operation, the two memory locations, the program in decimal or binary form, were read in form of punched cards, paper tape, magnetic tape, or toggled in on switches on the front panel of computer. Machine languages were later termed as first generation programming languages. This was the first generation. Now we're going to talk about the second generation. The next step of development was called the second generation programming laptops. This is the where the programming language started developing and like moving ahead. Assembly languages, which can be still closely tied instruction set architecture on specific computer. The first high level of programming language, the one that changed the game, was third generation programming language, and it was developed by a German called Plankel. I can't spell that. Sorry. So moving on, there was the short code and the high languages compiled at University of Manchester firstly, and other researches were done and made in 19 to 1950 50s and 60s. So, but the first actual programming language that was actually useful and good one was Fortran, was invented at IBM by John Buckus. It was first widely used as highly high level general purpose of programming language. So this was basically the history and general view of programming. You can go ahead and take a look at this and give yourself a bit of information. Let's move on. Modern day programming languages. You may be familiar with these. These are the modern day programming languages. The first one is obvious, Python, then Java, then Ruby, HTML. HTML is usually paired up with CSS for designing and basic structure of websites. JavaScript, C language, C++. C++ is the one of what I think is the most one of the complex languages and most implementable languages. Then there's PHP, Swift, and SQL. Some of you may know about this, but a lot of you, I think, may not know about this. These are the languages that people really know and are quite useful. HTML. HTML is the first language that we're going to start with. HTML is the basic structure of a website. HTML is a standard markup language for documents designed to be displayed in web browser. It can be assisted by technologies such as cascading style sheets and the CSS and scripting languages such as JavaScript. These are basically the design or basic structural side coding languages, but these are quite useful because web developers use these languages very often. Web browser receive HTML documents from web server or from local storage or render the documents into multimedia web pages. This is quite brilliant how technology has come afar and we can create amazing sites by just typing them on notepad or something else. HTML describes the structure of web page semantically and originally included cues for appearance of document. HTML elements are building blocks of HTML pages. I think everyone is familiar with that. With HTML constructs, images and other objects such as interactive forms may be embedded into the rendered page. HTML provides a mean to create structured documents by denoting structural semantics for text such as heading, paragraphs, links, lists, quotes, and other items. You can check out the various HTML elements, and there are other more HTML elements that you can gain knowledge about. Browser do not display HTML tags, but use them to interrupt the content of the page because HTML is the short language. Then comes the JavaScript. JavaScript is one of the most popular languages and most used as well. It seems impossible to be a software developer these days without using JavaScript. The first one on the list is JavaScript. It seems impossible to imagine software development without JavaScript. Looking at the Stack Overflow's 2018 developer survey, JavaScript is most popular language among developers successively for 6 years, and around 65% have used this language in past. Primarily Java Silverlight and interrupted major roles in front-end developing. So JavaScript is basically like the main weapon of programmers, which they use for their programming. Python. Python is one of the most general purpose user friendly programming. Python is considered the easiest language but also a difficult thing to master. Like Java, Python syntax is clear, intuitive, and almost similar to English language. Python's object-based subset is somewhere similar to JavaScript. According to Stack Overflow, there is one section which says to be adopted or migrated to or to migrate too soon, and for Python it's 12%, which is highest. Broadly, people who have migrated to Python are close to 42%, which signifies it to be number 2. If you're interested in making your career in backend development, like Django, open source framework is written in Python, which makes it easy to learn, feature packed, yet popular. Also, Python has a variety of applications that make it versatile and powerful. Being so popular in areas like scientific computing and machine learning and engineering, Python supports a programming style that uses simple functions and variables without much interrogating in class definitions. So basically, this was a Python overview. Now let's move on to other language. Java. Java. So, what is different between Java and JavaScript? Well, to be honest, there's a lot. If I ask for Java, most frequent sentence comes up would be write once, run everywhere. Java is highly cross-platform compatible or platform independent. Since you can code anywhere, I mean on any device, compile it on low-level machine code and finally execute on any platform using JVM Java machine, which is Java forms the base of our Android operating system and opted around 90% Fortune 500 company for making variety of backend applications. I would not hesitate for taking the biggest sensation Apache Hadoop data processing run by Amazon Web Services and Windows Azure. Java is all-time beginner's favorite. Now we're moving on to C, CPP. Old is gold. C has proved this quote in different ways. Being introduced in late 1970s, C has made a strong contribution to the world of programming. C has been partner, a parent in a language of handfuls. Some are either derived from C and inspired by its syntax. C is like the one of the basic languages that coders usually start learning first. C++ is like the second version of C or like the advanced version. C++ is seen as more performing than dynamically typed languages because the code is type checked before it's executed on real grounds. Now let's move on to PHP. This fact would seriously amaze you. The language, which was created purpose of maintaining personal homepage PHP for RAMs, Rezes have actually taken over 83% of websites globally by today. PHP stands for Hypertext Processor is general term programming language. Clearly, PHP is scripting language which runs on the server and it is used to create website written in HTML. So this was basically a brief view of PHP. You can learn more about it. Swift. Next on the list is Swift. As smooth as its name, Swift is general purpose, open source, compiled programming language developed by Apple Inc. If you're looking developed to native iOS and Mac OS apps, Swift is barely needed for its development. Swift is deeply influenced by Python and Ruby and was designed to be beginner friendly and fun to use. Unlike Objective-C, Swift requires less code, resembles with natural English, so it's easy for you to learn Swift. Besides this, some of the challenges are its limited talent pool. You may not find many Swift user developers. Ruby. Now, this one is one of the least known or but impactful languages. An open source dynamic programming language focused on simplicity and productivity, developed in mid 1990s in Japan. It was designed with theme of simplifying the programming environment and making more fun. Ruby becomes popular by Ruby on Rails framework, full stack framework, and Ruby has dynamically typed language. It does not have hard rules and it is highly level language which resembles with English language to great extent. So this was Ruby. Now, last but not least, SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Is a programming language to operate databases. It includes storing, manipulating, and retrieving data stored in relational database. SQL keeps data precise and secure. It also helps in maintaining integrity of databases irrespective of its size. SQL is if you're planning to opt database management as your career, first go through C or C++. SQL developers are in great demand and offered high pay scales. So many of you may be interested in this. So guys, that was it. That was my video. Thanks. Please like if you liked it. That's all. And thank you and have a nice day.